Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. You may have heard the term organizational citizenship behavior or workplace citizenship behavior. When we talk about organizational citizenship behavior or OCB, or also workplace citizenship behavior, what we're talking about are those behaviors in which employees engage that go above and beyond of what is part of their job, what is expected of them, what is asked of them. These are things that people will volunteer for, tasks, responsibilities that they will take on as part of that citizenship type of behavior. It's about going above and beyond. And the reason for that is that the employee chooses to do certain things, to perform tasks, to go above and beyond as a means of contributing to the organization and the organization's well-being, and by extension to their own well-being as an employee of that organization. OCB is good for both the employee and the organization as a whole. When OCB is done for the right reasons and is sustained in a healthy way, it benefits everyone involved. Some of the benefits may include increased productivity, increased morale, reduced turnover rates, a positive work environment, a sense of purpose for employees, better cooperation and collaboration, not only between employee and employer, but also amongst employees. Organizational citizenship behaviors can be beneficial for everyone at the organization, including the organization itself. However, there can be such a thing as too much of a good thing, especially when OCBs come to be expected of employees. When organizations have unspoken expectations or unwritten rules that call for OCBs from their employees, then these gestures of goodwill, going above and beyond, doing extra, are no longer done in the same way for the same reason. And that can really wear on a person. That can really reduce the joy of participating and giving, and turn something positive into a more negative, exhausting experience. When OCBs are expected from employees, this can lead to a feeling of overload or overwork and resentment. Generally speaking, people are inclined to preserve their resources that include their time and energy. That means what they do at work and what extra they do at work. There's a big difference between being in the type of environment where an individual is willing to give up those resources and relatively happy to do so, as opposed to when they feel like they have no choice because of unspoken expectations or unwritten rules. Having to give up those resources then takes on a whole different meaning and brings on a different experience. So what happens when employees reach that level of fatigue related to OCBs, when they have been giving and for whatever reason have reached that point where giving no longer has the same meaning or the same purpose or the same return. When giving and going beyond what is the norm, going above what is in their job description, when that becomes part of the organization's expectations, now this turns into a one-way exchange where the employee is giving time and effort, not because they feel compelled to do that, but because they feel like they are expected to do that. That can leave a bad feeling with the employee. Some signs that are related to this fatigue of organizational citizenship behaviors may include boredom, resentment, increased stress, fatigue, and exhaustion. There is a need for a certain balance that has to exist within the organization and in terms of the relationship between employer and employee. If OCBs are to be an actual thing within an organization and something that truly benefits both the employee and employer, certain things absolutely have to be in place. For one, there has to be a sense of mutuality. This has to be a mutual exchange of goodwill and good intention, followed by behaviors from both sides that benefit the other. In other words, it cannot just be the employee that continues to give by going above and beyond without the employer responding in kind. If an organization truly wants their employees to engage in OCBs, that organization has to be willing to do something in return, to behave in a similar manner towards their workforce. The other thing to consider is this, that while people do engage in OCBs because they want to, hopefully, there still is a tremendous value to being recognized for going above and beyond. So rewards and recognition have to be part of that reality, part of that exchange. Yes, an individual may be going above and beyond solely because they want to and not really expect anything in return, but there's a great deal of value when rewards and recognition are part of that exchange. So once again, organizations have to step up. There's a tremendous need for the right workplace ethics and values. It's nearly impossible for OCBs to exist, especially in a healthy way, when workplace ethics and values are questionable or non-existent. If an organization wants their employees to truly exhibit OCBs, there absolutely must be a certain level of ethics and values present at that organization within that environment and part of that culture. It's an absolute must. Another thing that plays an important part in this exchange between employer and employee is the right type of leadership. An organization may have some of the most well-intended employees who are truly dedicated to exhibiting the OCBs within the organization on a regular basis, but it may take one bad leader or manager or one bad action by a leader or manager to squash all of those intentions. So proper leadership is absolutely critical when it comes to organizational citizenship behaviors. The other thing worth mentioning here is workplace stress levels. It's difficult to exhibit OCBs when one's workplace is a stressful one. When the workplace environment is highly stressful, It's difficult enough to just do an individual's job, much less do anything extra. So an organization will do well to keep an eye on stress level within the environment, within the working environment, so that employees are not stressed out, but rather have an opportunity to engage in OCBs if they choose to do so. A final note on OCB behaviors that I'd like to add here is this. Different individuals are differently inspired, as is their character, to exhibit OCBs at work or anywhere else in terms of their equivalent. However, there is a part two to that. Regardless of how inspired an individual may be to engage in OCBs, there absolutely has to be a reason from the organization to be inspired to engage in organizational citizenship behaviors. In other words, once again, we may have the most well-intended, well-meaning employees, but if the organization does not inspire OCBs, even the most well-intended, well-intentioned employees will not exhibit certain behaviors that the organization may wish for. The overall takeaway from today's episode is this, that employees, however well-intended, however good of a track record they may have with OCBs, are getting tired. This is what we're seeing. They are feeling the fatigue of OCBs on their part because of one or more potential reasons that are coming from the organization's side, whether it's because these behaviors are blatantly expected when they really shouldn't be, or because there is no mutuality in that exchange, in that experience, or because the organization or its leadership simply do not inspire those kinds of behaviors. So while it's important for employees to understand the value of engaging in OCBs, this is something that again benefits both the organization but also each employee. The organization has to have a big aha moment and realize that if the employer wants to see OCBs from the workforce, they have to inspire it, they have to earn it, and they have to do the work to keep it. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Organizational citizenship behaviors, or OCBs, also known as workplace citizenship behaviors, are behaviors where employees go above and beyond in terms of their work contributions. This is often inspired and intended for the greater benefit of the organization and, by extension, the employees. But recent years we have seen fatigue related to OCBs. Such fatigue may look like boredom, disinterest, disengagement, increased stress, and exhaustion on the part of the employee. The organization plays a big part in earning and keeping OCBs from their workforce. This is something that should never be expected and always be recognized and appreciated. Expecting someone to go above and beyond can not only be exhausting, it can also lead to resentment. But when an organization keeps up and gives back to the employees on a regular basis, that in itself can be very inspirational for ongoing OCBs from the workforce. As this week unfolds, I encourage you to take a look at OCBs within your organization. As an employee, do you engage in OCBs? And if you do, why? Or if you don't, why not? As an organization, do you see OCBs from your employees? And what are you doing to earn such behaviors and to ensure that you keep such behaviors? How are you repaying your employees for going above and beyond? This is a good time to review all that. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. While you're there, check out some of the other videos which focus on stress management. Once again, Stress Free with Dr. G can be found on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me here today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.